What up, Dealy gang? Dealy Kamel here. I wanted to kind of look of the state of the game, or at least a few decks that have risen to the top since Soul Flare Lightning came out, and of course that's going to begin with Orcust. So Orcust are the new tier 1 deck in Duel Links, and I believe these are two of the more popular builds that have come about with this deck, but there are many ways to play this deck just because of how good Orcust is. So the first list you're going to see is the winning list from Damage Step, and then the second is another one that I've seen many people play and win many main phase tournaments. So just to talk about some of the strengths of Orcust, we can see they have powerful graveyard effects, and not just any very good graveyard effects. These are graveyard effects on the level of previous ones that, made cards like Artifact Lancia so good, right? We're talking decks that, had to have their graveyard effects just totally removed or butchered. We're talking the likes of Hiranui, Vampires, all this stuff, just insane graveyard decks that would warrant the use of, DD Crow, Sealed Tombs, and Lancia, and that's why these cards are definitely coming back. And the fact that you have so many graveyard effects, you could think just any of your cards are going to be able to be activated from the grave due to your orchestrated babble, and then you're gonna be able to summon them out. Even your boss monster can be resummoned with your graveyard effect and be used as removal, so super powerful there. And they have a lot of extenders. This being a link summoning deck, I think that within one turn this deck probably has the most extenders that you have access to, just because of how many graveyard effects are part of your combo. Even the more combo centric link decks that we have in the game right now, like Code Talkers and Solomon Greats, those decks only really last as long in the combo as how many cards you have in your hand. Yes, they do each have like their one-off graveyard extenders, but Orcust takes it to a whole nother level, and I think that is what's blowing this deck out of the blowing all the other decks out of the water right now, especially when it comes to link summoning. This deck just makes it happen better than pretty much everyone, and there are very versatile, right? Orcust as themselves, they're versatile as a deck and as an engine, and there are many builds. Something I was talking about before, I was seeing Mech Knight Orcust, I was seeing Crystal Beast Orcust. What else were we seeing? I think I saw Salmon Great Orcust and Code Talker as well. But look, I don't know how all of these decks are working. I did see Crystal Beast doing extremely well on the ladder, and Mech Knights, I was seeing it did get top 16 in damage step. So these are things to think about when playing the deck. You do have more options than just the couple versions that did very well in the tournament. Just to put on the screen, the Gendora build, which won damage step this past weekend, I found very interesting, just because the Gendora engine works on its own very independently of Orcust, and it's very good at giving you numerous bodies on the board that you could use for whatever you want, your Gear Jagat to get searching more, or your link summoning stuff. And then your Orcust operate completely on your own, and Gendora can serve not as just a consistency engine, but also it's that win con at the end of the game. When you feel like you've exhausted the rest of your Orcust win cons, you've got Gendora there to secure you the duel. So overall, Orcust right now, definitely tier 1. How do I feel about their power? Do they need to get put in line at all? I was talking with the chat in Twitch chat, and people were, of course, we had their discourse, people saying that, why should every new deck get nerfed, or blah blah blah. If Orcust are to lose one thing, I believe the first thing will be access to limit 3 traps. However, because we've seen that the deck can operate without limit 3 traps, I think that a limit 3 would also have to come with another card within the deck being limited to 3. So I'm going to say that if Orcust are going to see a nerf in the recent future, like after the KCGT qualifier or the World Championship Grand qualifier, it's going to be, I think, 2 cards within the deck are going to get put to 3, and that's either within the Orcust deck or within one of their main extenders are also going to get put to 3. So that's what I think about Orcust. Let me know what you guys are feeling about the deck in the comments. Moving on. All right, the next 2 decks that we're going to talk about are the 2 decks that I think are the next strongest decks behind Orcust, and that's going to be DDD and Elemental Heroes. So I do think DDDs are a little bit stronger than Heroes, and that's partially due to the fact that they have a pretty good matchup against Orcust, I believe, anyway. This past week, we got to see a lot of matchups. I think that's the best thing about tournaments like Main Phase. You get to see so many matchups against these decks with, the best players playing them. So something that we got to see specifically was how much Orcust relies on spells and traps for their early game interruption in order to maintain their tempo. A deck like DDD is very easily probably the most aggressive deck in the format, could put up a full board of 4 level 8 monsters in one turn if they draw well enough, and some of the other parts of the deck came into play a lot here. We saw Orthros being very good at removing a lot of the spell and trap threats of Orcust as well. The extra deck coming in huge here. In fact, Dingirsu being a monster that DDD can summon themselves, and with a very powerful effect on summon. They don't even have to go through the chain of the other Galaxy Eyes monsters, and going second, this deck is a nightmare for Orcust to go against just because of how many threats that they can bait out and how many bodies they can bring to the board. Flame Hiking Genghis as well, negating everything when it is their turn, you know, something to keep in mind. And I don't know, this deck meshes very well with Lancia. It always has. And it's not limited too much by any other nerfs or any other decks in the meta right now. You know, when I think DDD, it has Heroes Beat for the most high power monsters that you could bring out in one turn. It's probably the best deck in the meta for that, and it does the best against Orcust strengths. So that's where I think it is in the meta right now, and this is a pretty good list for it. Be sure to take use of Dingirsu. He is huge for this deck. Just sending one, even though you don't get to reuse it a whole lot, it is still a good monster in this deck just because of its powerful upfront effect. And for heroes here, dude, heroes are not doing anything much out of the ordinary, just taking great use of their skill, and they're able to control the board quite well with the threatening use of super polymerization as an interruption on their first turn. You know, they're able to set 3 back row, hopefully with the other limit 3 traps, and set up a opportunity for you to put yourself in a great position, especially against Orcust. You know, we've seen just how good Crackdown and Ice Dragon's Prison are against them. So I think the fact that heroes can run these cards and see them very soon because of the likes of Liquid Soldier, allowing you to draw cards very often, thin out your deck via your other elemental hero searches. You're seeing these trap cards quite often, and they are very, very effective against Orcust. Since this deck is, I think this is probably the deck that is utilizing those traps the most, to the best ability against Orcust, because, you know, some of the other ones, you know, they can't use them, or they're just kind of crutching on them to survive. But I feel like heroes here are really being able to use them to their full potential, and that's why they're able to compete in this meta. Now, some people were saying, hero nerfs, what would it be? I don't think heroes need a nerf right now. I think heroes are in a good spot. They just got their skill buffed, and they are utilizing the limit 3 traps effectively, but not oppressively, I don't think. I will say that their draw power, on top of them having a good new skill, does make them pretty good against, I don't know, I guess more decks that haven't gotten support recently or haven't gotten love recently. But these changes to the deck that have it in its current state do allow it to compete with the big boys, and I think that is good. All right, the last 2 decks I wanted to briefly touch on are kind of like tier 3 decks, but I do think that they are in much better places now because of the new meta. The first one is Chronomaly. Now, I kind of was not totally sold on Chronomaly being a good deck again at first, just because of Venama, but honestly, the deck is really good with Venama. You know, this is a much better boss monster than I thought. You know, you can just put this card, give it overlay units, and then you can negate an activation period of a monster effect, and that's going to be really useful now, especially against some of the other decks right now that are really crutching on their big boss monster effects, Orcust, heroes, DDD. You know, these effects that just typically go off. You know, you think your Sunrise going to go off? Nope. You think your Orcust, you think your Dingirsu Galaxy effect going to go off? Nope. So that is what's really making this deck pop off right now, and the skill is probably one of the much better Xyz summoning skills in the game. We just did not have an amazing Xyz monster target for it. Now we have the best Chronomaly in the game, so pretty cool. And this deck also is using those limit 3 traps, of course, and I like to see Barrage Blast. This is a card that people used with Gimmick Puppets, and it kind of gives your Xyz monsters an added aggressive bonus when they're lacking a really aggressive effect, and that is what Chronomalys typically lack. So Barrage Blast is going to be letting you detach Xyz materials and then destroy cards. and very good. It worked for Gimmick Puppets, kind of pushed them into the top of the rogue decks, and it's helping push Chronomalies into tier 3 right now. And yeah, just straight up why this is pretty good against Orcust. Of course, it's negating their effects, and you know, they are not only utilizing limit 3 traps, but another trap that is giving them some pretty powerful output of spot destruction, and something again that, you know, you're going to need in abundance if you're going to deal with how many extenders and, you know, how much Orcust can float and resummon. So yeah, nice to see Chronomalies doing good right now. As for Sulfur I don't know as much about Sulfur, but we were looking at them closely after the Mech Knight meta, and they kind of got their point to jump into the meta because Mech Knights were oppressing them quite a bit. Now, against the likes of the meta right now, I think that they are very, very good going second. I think going first, they are unable to set up enough interruption and survivability to really let themselves survive. You know, their monsters themselves don't really do good at defending, and their pendulum effects are only really good when you are making a play against your opponent's already established resources. Now, Sulfur are definitely good in the meta. I just think that one reason why they are probably worse than the other decks is just that their plays are less versatile going first. They're definitely a going second deck, and I feel like the better decks in the format right now are a little more versatile than that. But Sulfur is definitely up there. Let me know what your thoughts are on Sulfur and Chronomalies. I think they're the two decks that are going to be rising up there to you know, maybe some of the higher tiers in the coming weeks. So keep an eye on them, guys. Let me know what you think about the current meta, what your thoughts are, what decks you think are too strong. What do you think decks you know, might need a boost, or what's going to be strong next in the comments below. Peace out, guys. Talk to you later.